Today we are returning to the world of the Fuel Project, and in the last video of theirs that we looked at, we learned that Mark here, who kind of owns and presents and runs the channel, he kind of hates to see anyone happy. He's one of those guys. Oh, hello! Come on, good girl. Someone wants to be in the video. Anyway, last time Mark taught us that apparently looking after yourself and your basic needs is narcissistic drivel, or as he says,
utter garbage. Is narcissistic claptrap, twisted, self-centered, narcissistic drivel.
We also learned that he likes to ignore the genuine teaching of the whole love yourself ideology, and instead he assumes it's all about encouraging people to act as though they themselves are gods and screw everyone else over. He just seems like quite an angry man, which is why... Oh, careful. He just seems like a man quite angry at the world, which is why I don't have the highest hopes for his other videos, but we're gonna give them a chance. You guys asked me to look at Mark's other videos, specifically his ones about the LGBTQ+ community. I'm sorry, I'm covered in dog dribble. So today we are diving into his War on Truth series, which apparently is a series of videos about how a generation abandoned reality. And we will be learning the truth about transgenderism today. Yeah, this should be a fun one. Before we even jump into his video and start tearing the meat of it apart properly, let's talk a little bit about this title, because this is a problem. The truth about transgenderism. I hate that word with a passion, and for a while I thought this was just me. I have spoken about this a little bit in other videos before, but never like a full-on rant like I've wanted to. It's up there with how like a lot of anti-LGBT+ people and religious fundamentalists, they use homosexuals, transgenderism. It's all to be quite dehumanizing, and it's just doesn't sit right with me. It's not nice at all. It's as though adding an isn't to something somehow delegitimizes it. The same way they talk about evolutionism and Darwinism and stuff like that. It's to make it seem bigger or scarier than it is. It's to imply there's some scary ideology behind it, you know? A word like transgenderism is definitely used to try and suggest that all transgender people are part of some big collaborative group with some dark agenda to take over the rest of the world or something ridiculous like that. It's stupid. Can we just drop this whole transgenderism thing already and just speak like normal people and realize that in the world, some people are transgender and some people aren't. And in both of those categories, there are lots and lots of individuals. That's all there is to it here. When we talk about gender issues, we're not talking about some big, dark political agenda. We're talking about people. See, even Kyra agrees with me. I was actually a little bit worried that I was overreacting about this, because I'm not normally one to get like too bogged down in individual words and get too picky about like, but the exact definition of this, but words do have power. And when people choose to use specific words for a reason to push an agenda, I want to kind of talk about that and kind of call it out a bit and be like, that's not okay. So I felt like I was justified in this case, but I also wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one feeling this way. So I asked you lovely lot on Twitter what you thought about people who use the word transgenderism, and I got some very interesting replies that I just want to share with you guys right now. So thank you so much to everyone who got involved in the conversation, shared your thoughts, shared your stories with me on Twitter. I appreciate you all so much. And I also want to extend a special thank you to two YouTubers in particular who helped me a hell of a lot with this video. They read over my script, they made sure I was using the correct language, and they were just generally a great, amazing support. They are, the YouTube channels are Gentle Corner and Rose of Dawn. I thoroughly recommend both their channels, and I cannot thank them enough for their help and their support and just how amazing and lovely they both are. I'm going to link their channels in the description below. Please go check them out, send them loads and loads of love and support because they really deserve it. And yeah, thank you so much. They've also been amazing. These guys, along with a bunch of other people on Twitter, have recommended me some amazing resources on like gender issues in general, so there'll be tons of further reading and videos and all sorts of stuff like that down in the description as well, so you can check that out after the video. Anyway, let's jump into what the Field Project says about transgenderism.
People are so confused about gender that we now live in an era where over 300 gender definitions exist. In fact, according to this video, there are endless gender definitions.
Damn, he's right, you know. Having so many genders, it confuses my little brain, because I can't count to more than 2. And so having so many options, it's like, how will I ever know what I am? You know what? With so many options, they must all be evil and wrong, and these other genders must just not exist because there's too many of them for me to count. And, on a completely unrelated note, did you know we now live in a world where we're so confused about species that apparently scientists say over 8.7 million different species apparently exist? I mean, with so many options, how will I ever know if I'm human or not? It's stupid. Do you see how ridiculous his point is? He then goes on to show this lovely little clip of someone explaining the differences between sex and gender and how non-binary people exist in a really basic and nice, easy to understand way. I'm going to leave the link to his video in the description below so you can go and check out all these clips together full length properly if you want. But to summarise what this person's saying, apparently sex and gender are not the same thing. People are mostly biologically either male or female, but people can identify as different genders. They may identify as male or female or somewhere in between. Gender isn't about what genitals or chromosomes you have, it's about how you feel, how you want to present yourself to society, and what makes you comfortable. It's a very personal thing. That's not to say gender's a choice, it's more than just what your genitals or chromosomes are. That's a basic summary of what this person says, and yeah, I think it's pretty fair, pretty legit. That's it. That's something we should all understand and accept and be okay with. There's not really anything to argue against there, I don't think. I don't think it matters in the slightest what someone defines their gender as, what label they want to put on it. What is important is that every person feels that they can safely express themselves and their gender how they want to, and that other people are respectful of it and make sure they use the pronouns that they want and so on. Honestly, how a person chooses to express themselves and their gender identity and what label they put on it affects absolutely no one outside of themselves, so I don't understand how anyone, including Mark here, can really have a problem with it. Except he obviously does, so let's find out what his apparent problem is.
Don't you understand, people? Facts don't matter. Facts are outdated. What are you talking about facts for? We live in a post-truth society. Now it's only what you feel that counts. Feelings override reality.
Mark really is a fan of strawmanning his opponents, isn't he? He did it completely throughout the last video we watched, and he's doing it again here. Kinda might call him Straw Mark from now on. You know, like Strawman, Mark, Straw Mark. Look, I'm not very creative, okay? So, Straw Mark, in response, no one ever said anything about facts not mattering. You're pulling that out of your bum, like most other things you say. Most reasonable people are simply saying sex and gender are separate issues, and gender is not defined by the same parameters as sex. Your gender is not inherently linked to your chromosomes or your genitals. They are different issues. That is the only thing we're stating here. How is that so hard to follow?
And it's a sad indictment of our era that we're now so far into the left pit of feelings over facts that we now have to spend an entire episode re-establishing one of the clearest and most undeniable facts of reality, that there are just 2 genders, male and female.
Once again, mate, you are completely missing the point that sex and gender are different things. Stop using them interchangeably, because when we talk about this topic, they are very, very different. But let's assume for a moment you are talking about sex. You're still misrepresenting the facts and missing out a hell of a lot of information. It's not just about external genitals and chromosomes. It's far more complex than you're making it out to be. What about people who are intersex? They exist and they are valid, and he makes no mention of them. People aren't just XX or XY. Some people have extra chromosomes and can be XXY and so on. What about all the animal species where some are hermaphrodites? What about the living organisms which are asexual and don't have any gender or sex at all? The idea that there's only male and female in biology is so outdated, and if you really want to talk about the objective facts, Mark, you're completely wrong. You're missing out. so much information.
But such has been the cultural shift into the left pit that even the biggest organisations in the world are currently pandering to these delusions. Facebook, for example, has currently provided 71 different gender options for users to accommodate these fantasies.
You say pandering to delusions, I say treating people with a basic level of respect. Tomato, tomato. Who's right, really? Me. I'm right. Treat people with respect.
But see, the problem for liberals in all of this is that the truth doesn't adapt to their delusions. Science and facts are not politically correct.
He is actually partially right on this one, you know? Which is kind of shocking, isn't it? But very exciting. Objective facts don't care about what we want to be true. It's either real or it isn't. That is true. But that's why, no matter how much Strawmark here stomps his feet and cries about how there's only 2 genders, he'll still never be right. Because objectively, he is wrong. A lot more research needs to be done into the subject, but some studies have suggested that transgender people's brains are often more similar in structure to the gender they identify as than the phenotypical sex they were born as. By which I mean some studies have shown greater similarities between the brain structures of transgender females and cisgender females than between transgender females and cisgender males. There's nothing completely 100% conclusive yet, and far more time needs to be spent studying this. But it's very, very interesting and very, very telling. It also shows that Mark is most likely wrong about how your gender and phenotypical sex have to line up. In terms of these studies, I would be very, very interested to see what the brain structure and behaviour of agender and non-binary people is like compared to trans and cisgender people. I think that would be very fascinating, and that is a study that needs to be done on a fairly large scale if possible. That would be not only fascinating but very useful. All of these studies would be. Once we have some more solid proof that gender and sex are distinct, I think it would definitely help people like Mark here stop spouting his crap about only 2 genders and blah 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 and getting gender and sex mixed up. Plus, I think it would help a hell of a lot more people. Being able to understand what biologically defines someone's gender would help so many people. It would help people who are unsure about how they want to present and what their gender identity is and where they are in life. It would make people feel more valid. Perhaps it would help people suffering with gender dysphoria. Perhaps it could eliminate gender dysphoria altogether. They're not just studies for the sake of it. They're studies that should be done and need to be done because we need to learn and understand more about these gender issues to help the people suffering. Transgender people and other people with gender issues have such high rates of depression and suicide and other mental health problems because we don't understand them well enough. We can't offer the full support that they need. Society still isn't accepting of them. Once we start to accept these people and everyone realises that they're just humans like the rest of us, there's not something wrong with them, they're just people. Once we start to understand their gender issues, we can help treat them better, we can help accept them better, and those rates of suicide and depression and mental health issues are going to go down, and that's what we need. That is a very important thing to focus on, and that's why I think more time and money should be put into studying the biology behind gender issues. One of the big problems is, though, that before we can do any more of these studies in too much detail, we need to make sure that the people who do identify as genders other than the one they were assigned at birth are able to live freely and comfortably and safely and develop normally and fully express themselves. We can't have people like Strawmark here mocking and criticising them, trying to make them suppress their true identities. He's trying to create this vicious cycle of, like, no studies show these people exist, so they can't exist, so we can't do any studies on them, so they can't exist. So it's a cycle and it's ridiculous. We need to stop that. We need to say, no, let people live. Let them be comfortable in who they are. Let them be confident in who they are. And once they feel comfortable and confident, we can study them as they've developed normally and say, oh, well, okay, this is how their brains work. This is how we help more people in the future, and so on. And it'll be a nice positive cycle of learning more and helping people and learning more and helping people. And soon, hopefully, the majority of society will start to realise that, you know, transgender people, non-binary people, it's completely normal.
So let's bring some truth back into this issue and deal with some of the common liberal arguments for transgenderism. No, you can't literally change gender. It is scientifically impossible. Genes fundamentally determine our sex. So humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and within these chromosome pairs we are coded with DNA. The first 22 chromosome pairs are microscopically identical in men and women, but the 23rd pair is different. It is that chromosome pair that defines whether we are male or female. Females have two X chromosomes while men have an X and Y chromosome. So in other words, men and women are simply coded differently, and that's why we develop into very similar but ultimately different beings.
Mate, he's doing it again! That thing where he equates sex and gender. Stop already! And once again, he's right to some extent with the chromosome thing and sex, but you're completely ignoring the fact that intersex people exist. There are some cases of people being born with XXY chromosomes, for example. Where do they fit into your narrow little view? One thing I do actually agree with him on is that you can't just change your gender by choice. It's not something that you decide. While it is distinct from sex, it's important to remember, I think, that your gender is defined by your biology. It's probably in your DNA. A trans woman doesn't decide she's a trans woman any more than I decided I was a cis woman. She just is a woman. That's what her biology says. Trans women are women biologically, even if they aren't phenotypically. Do you know what I'm saying?
Remember what Dr. McHugh said, sex change is biologically impossible. People who undergo sex reassignment surgery do not change from men to women or vice versa. Rather, they become feminized men or masculinized women. Claiming that this is a civil rights matter or encouraging surgical intervention is in reality to collaborate with and promote a mental disorder. Indeed, transsexualism was officially classified as a psychiatric disorder by the World Health Organization in 1978.
You know what else used to be a mental disorder? Drapetomania. It's this strange psychological condition where, for some unknown reason, slaves would run away and try and escape from their masters. Isn't that bizarre? Yeah, it was so common apparently that they gave this weird disorder a name. But don't worry, it was entirely curable apparently by whipping the devil out of the slaves who suffered from it. Yeah, we had some pretty warped views of mental illness, back in the day. Just because we thought something in the past doesn't make it right.
You can identify as any gender, sure you can. But the point is that it's delusional to identify as something other than what you are.
You're right, it would be delusional to identify as a gender other than what you are, which is why trans women shouldn't be forced to present as men, and trans men shouldn't be forced to present as women. No one should be forced to identify and portray themselves and present in a way other than the way they feel comfortable. How do you think Mark here would feel if someone came up to him and told him he was a wicked, dirty, disgusting sinner, unless he starts dressing like a woman, presenting as a woman, wearing women's clothes, having everyone around him refer to him as she and her and miss and ma'am and that kind of thing? I don't think he'd like it very much, so why is he trying to force that upon other people?
It doesn't matter what you feel, all that matters is what you really are. The world would descend into chaos if we were to accommodate everyone's individual delusions about who they are merely to spare their feelings, and yet that's what's happening with transgenderism. The world is bending over backwards to accommodate psychiatric disorders.
Yeah, I totally agree with him because it's just so difficult treating, humans as humans. I have to treat this person with a basic level of respect and decency. Oh my god, you are basically asking me to break my back for them. Disgusting.
That's simply not true. We've already mentioned how gender is entirely rooted in genetic programming. Male and female identities are fixed and immutable.
No, you just briefly spoke about how sex was rooted in genetics and then missed out some key facts and moved on.
Now, what you may mean is that gender roles are a social construct, but that's not really true either, as we spoke about in the previous episode. Traditional roles have largely emerged in response to biological facts.
Oh my god, Mark, your views could not be more outdated and wrong. But everyone else, don't worry. This previous episode he mentioned is called The Truth About Feminism, and I have plans to look at that one too. Why I'm torturing myself this way, I don't know, but I do it for you guys.
It's true that you can get more feminine women and more masculine women, and it's true that you can get more masculine men and more feminine men. But even allowing for diversity within the sexes like this, it doesn't negate the fact that at the end of the day, everyone remains biologically one or the other. A man who wears pink and enjoys the occasional bubble bath isn't a non-binary demi-boy boy-flux, a cosmic gender who's part forest or swamp. He's just a man who strays a little bit from the traditional norm. And similarly, a woman who likes fixing cars and watching football isn't an effective gender, equigender, femme-fluid gender blur. She's just a woman who likes fixing cars and watching sports.
Okay, I'm done with this now. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you can just resort to mocking it, okay? I don't think he even understands what gender is. I don't think he understands what gender identity is. I don't think he understands what gender dysphoria is and that it can actually be a thing and how seriously it affects people. There is so much more to gender than just, I like fixing cars. Like, who really thinks like that? I hear him speaking like this and I look at him and I think this isn't just a bit of ignorance, this isn't just a bit of stupidity, this is willful ignorance. He blatantly doesn't even want to try and understand people. He just wants to be angry at them.
It does quite a lot of harm, because remember, we're collaborating with mental illness and creating a world of absurd confusion in the process. Furthermore, we're not actually helping transgendered individuals when we indulge their delusions like this. The stats show that whatever internal turmoil has led them to reject their true identity, it remains unresolved even after surgery. Depression and suicide is far more prevalent in the transgender community. In fact, 41%, approaching half, have attempted suicide in the US.
Yes, because of people like you, Mark. We spoke about this before, but if you treat people like human beings, show them respect, let people live in a way that makes them happy and comfortable and confident, you will see those numbers of depression and suicide and mental health issues go down. Those high numbers of suicide and depression prove we need to show even more love and support than ever, not shame and disbelief. Let's use Mark's logic against him here, shall we? Did you know that around 76% of suicides in the UK are committed by men? It's the largest cause of death for men under 35 years of age. Therefore, all men under 35 years of age clearly have something wrong with them, and if we want to stop them all killing themselves, we need to make them feel guilty about being men and judge them constantly and make sure they know that it's disgusting and wrong to be a man, because that's how we fix the underlying problem with them and their depression. Do you see how ridiculous that is? Anyway, that's my rant done. Sorry this was a little bit of an emotional one today, a little bit ranty, a little bit angry, but you've seen the video, I think it's warranted. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. Please go check out Jen's Little Corner and Rose of Dawn. Thank you to everyone who helped in making this video and contributing to it, in telling your stories, sharing your side of things. Let me know what you think about Mark's video and transgenderism. Ooh, horrible word. But for now, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you again soon. You guys asked me to look at Mark's other videos, in particular his ones about the LGBT plus community. Can I do a serious video here, Bean? What is this? What is this? Oh! Being attacked by a small werewolf. I got you, baby. I got you. So much for a serious video.